Welcome back, everyone, to this year's Network Automation Summit, brought to you by Fierce Wireless. If you are joining us now, my name is Oliver Ward, and I am your host for the show. Allow me to start by thanking Rakuten Symphony for their support of this session. So you can best prepare, Sylvia Kashish from Ookla will lead our panel discussion as she is joined by speakers from Rakuten Symphony, Mitre Labs, Orange, and Reliance Jio. Make sure you join the conversation on Twitter and LinkedIn with hashtag Network Automation, and be sure your questions for the speakers are being submitted in the Q&A tab at the top of the screen. So that's all from me for now. Sylvia, please take it away.
Thank you, Oliver, and hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody to today's panel, delivering next generation services with AI native telco. My name is Sylvia Kashish. I'm the principal analyst at Ookla. And in case you haven't heard of Ookla, we are the company behind a number of brands such as Speedtest, Doubt Detector, and Ekahau. Just a reminder to the audience that you can ask questions to the panelists in the Q&A tab, and we try to answer them in due course. So we are in a little bit of a crossroads. Communication service providers are transitioning from 5G to 6G, and automation is very important and crucial to their success. In today's session, we will aim to answer some of the pressing questions in terms of where the industry is heading and what sort of challenges we're facing and how they can be addressed. So I am joined by a panel of esteemed colleagues in the industry, and I would like to start us off by maybe having a brief introduction and each one of you telling us a little bit about your background and how do you fit within the telecommunication industry and the AI native telco services. So I will go in the order how I see everybody in my screen. It makes it easier. Let's start with you, Venki, if I may.
Sure. Thank you, Sylvia. My name is Venki Ramaswamy, and I am the Chief Technologist for NextG at Mitre Labs. I am in charge of all activities, predominantly research activities and development activities related to 5G and 6G, which pretty much includes everything from IoT, AI, ML, cloud native architectures, and so on. So 5G and 6G these days encompass everything, right? So I'm in charge of all those activities. Now, you may not have heard of Mitre Labs, not that much. And if you have not heard of Mitre Labs, Mitre is a nonprofit company working in the public interest. So we are an unbiased advisor to the US government, advising pretty much everything related to technology, be it 5G, 6G, cybersecurity, quantum computing, biotech, pretty much everything you can think of these days. So that's a brief introduction, and looking forward to this great panel.
Maybe we can move to you, Alexis.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So I am Alexis Cola. I work for Orange at Orange, and I'm currently the Director of Operation Strategy and Transformation. And I have a background of software developer in IT part, and now I move to network part. And I'm managing a team who is in charge of gardening for the operation efficiency in for Orange and for all the affiliates in Orange. And that's all. Thank you.
Perfect. Nandan?
Hi, Sylvia. Hello, everyone. So I'm Sree Nandan from Rakuten Symphony. I'm a technical director. I'm leading Rakuten Symphony's ambitious vision of end-to-end orchestrator for managing the infrastructure, clusters, and applications with a view on hyper-automation, security, observability, and energy management.
Perfect. And last but not least, Ravi, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I hope I'm audible. I'm Ravi Sinha, basically I'm wearing two hats over here, mainly representing Oren Alliance, NGRG, which is Next Generation Research Group, which is one of the kind of very active and I'll say very vibrant set of team, which is working towards the research mainly related to ORAN framework, as well as working on multiple white papers making sure that the transition for ORAN happens in a very smooth fashion in coming 7 years. So that is my focus. And of course, automation and sustainability, energy efficiency, and multiple other things related to it is also one of the major focuses. And of course, I represent Reliance to ORAN Alliance. So I'm sure that you guys are aware who Reliance is, and we are the Indian operator and one of the fastest growing telco brands in the world. But majorly, like at present, I'm representing ORAN Alliance and all activities related to the artificial intelligence, fully infused to the different layers in distributed and central kind of centrally aligned frameworks and domains. So this is what we are trying to work on, and hopefully you will be seeing multiple research papers coming out in a couple of months. And happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. So you started as of very nicely because we're talking about automation. Automation has been a key part of the industry for many years already. But what are the key advancements and trends in automation that we're currently seeing? And how can we further enhance automation strategies in the future? And maybe we can build on that question. It's a very open question, but you can take it in any direction that you want. Maybe Ravi, starting with you, and anybody wants to add?
Sure. I think when I try to align or try to see what we had with 3G, 4G, and then what we are going to have with 5G, 5G Advanced, and moving to 6G. So in terms of automation, the previous 3GPP technologies, they were only made sure that the NOCs or OSS, BSS are aligned, dashboarding are being done and all. But then later on, based on how to improve the efficiency of our networks, multiple changes happen to the OSS and BSS as well as to our self-optimization frameworks, and SON has become very popular. And of course, all over the world, multiple operators, they have deployed SON infrastructure all around to make sure that the network is fully optimized and it has got the facilities to auto detect, and you get some advices to auto correct as well. If it was also having the arrangements to do those things being done without any help as well, but operators, they were always little careful about having a 360 going on with full automation. Later on, I think TR69 196 World to complete NetConf and Yang models, we have seen that a lot of things change at a RAN level as well as core infrastructure and overall end-to-end. And of course, ORAN being one of the leaders in solutioning, we have done a lot in that area, starting from the RIC framework, which you have seen with a non-real-time and near real-time going north to south, as well as like with 6G, we'll also be adding real-time as well. But then again, it was like it was not only managing the management plane, but later on figuring it out that how we can also infuse your native artificial intelligence as well as cross-domain artificial intelligence, and at the top going to the end-to-end SMOs or the multi-domain SMOs. We are going to add a complete layer of federated artificial intelligence framework, which adds multiple things. Automation is one piece of it, but smartness, intelligence, energy efficiency, and decision-making capabilities, dynamic SLA arrangements, and human-to-machine interfaces with multiple sets of data monetization. And as it was all a part of the automation fabric we had in terms of radios, core, and infrastructure. So hope to see a lot in that area. Thank you.
Perfect. And maybe moving on to you, Venki, because when we were preparing for this call, you mentioned that there's quite a lot of silos happening at the moment, and there's a need to adopt a bit more holistic view of network management. Are we there yet? Are we moving in the right direction? How do you view that?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, right, we have been doing automation for maybe 40 years. And when we were doing automation all these years, the focus was always on a network element. So, we always think about element management systems and so on, where the focus is always on one part of the network. And this thinking has led us to islands of automation, right? So we have automation that is happening in RAN, in core, in edge, and things like that, but there is no real connected intelligence. And I see that going forward, that is going to be an important aspect that we will focus on, where not only the automation is happening in one part of the network, but also in a connected fashion, which is what we call as the connected intelligence with respect to networks. So that's going to be an important item that I see going forward. The second aspect that I see is that all the automation that we have done in the past, mainly, is what I call as simple automation, right? Where there is basically stuff that any human would do. We are trying to just automate it. And in simple automation, the idea is that we are not doing anything closed loop, only open loop automation, meaning that you're not getting really any feedback from the network to change the way you automate. That is going to change in the future. And in the future, it will be complete automation. So when I say complete automation, I'm really referring to this self chop framework, which is self configuration, self healing, self optimization, and self protection or self securing networks. So complete automation that takes into consideration different things like a closed loop automation, right? So you're not only looking at what is happening, what you want to do, but also getting feedback from the network to make sure that the policies that you implement are also working. So the combination of both assurance as well as orchestration is going to happen in a more seamless fashion. So those two aspects I see as where the whole industry is moving, which is the number one, which is a connected intelligence. No more thinking as silos, but more as a network as a whole. And also this idea of closed loop automation, where you are in real time, you are taking into consideration how the network is operating. So, what Ravi was talking about, Oran Alliance, right? So, Oran Alliance has this framework of brick, where you also have something like very fast loops, outer loop as well as inner loop, that would make sure that the network is operating according to the outcomes that you are interested in. Over.
That sounds like we're heading in the right direction. But maybe if I move to you, Alexis, you're already working quite a lot in looking at the impact that AI has on operational efficiency. So could
Yeah.
you provide more insights in terms of how AI facilitates Orange 5G standalone in particular rollout, and how do you use AI to improve data quality and optimize inventory through machine learning?
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. So at Orange, we are embracing, I may say, AI in operations. We are at the beginning of a long and amazing journey of how to take into account AI, AOps, MLOps in operations to gain in efficiency and also to accelerate and enable 5G standalone rollout in our affiliate. The impact I can see are many. There are impact on our operations processes, so incident management, problem management, capacity management, fault management, monitoring, and so on. And also there is Ravi was talking about dynamic inventory, closed loop inventory for our equipment in a network. And I think really where AI will provide more benefits and added value is how we maintain our equipment in our networks. We can go either predictive maintenance, it's kind of reactive approach, or preventive one by learning from failure root cause analysis to have a kind of preventive maintenance, and also predictive by taking advantage from AOps and our model from machine learning and our data. We'll come back maybe later on how we get data and how we can use data to improve predictive maintenance and also prescriptive one. Prescriptive is the last level of how equipment in a network can collaborate together in order to improve the quality of the network, the quality of the bandwidth, and so on. So I think that I don't think at Orange the reality is observability will enable AIOps, and AIOps will help us to go and take the journey of autonomous network where the human intervention will be reduced and we'll have machine learning or AI that is taking the end over. Thank you.
Perfect. And you mentioned, I mean, we started talking about 5G standalone. We're not seeing 5G standalone progressing as fast as we would have expected. There are a number of operators that are upgrading the rollouts. There's still quite a lot of trials, but we're moving rather slow in the 5G standalone direction for multiple reasons. Could any of you gentlemen elaborate why 5G standalone core is so crucial to be able to move towards automated networks, and why is it really so important to move in that direction?
Yeah, I can take a stab if you wish. So, as you correctly pointed out, right? So, by the end of 2022, what we have seen is about 13% of the operators globally have adopted 5G core. And there are reasons for it, right? I mean, because 5G core offers a lot more capabilities, and some of these operators may or may not need those capabilities because they are, things like advanced slicing, security. So if you really don't need those things, maybe there is no need for it. And the 5G core, 5G SA core has been adopted mainly by the private network operators. So that's one reason. The second is, if you think about automation itself, right? There are a couple of different things that we need to take care of. One is observability, as Alexis was pointing out. We need complete observability of what is happening because that is needed to collect data, and because data is a rocket fuel of automation, right? We need more and more data to do automation to understand what is happening in the network. So the ability to really collect data, monitor the system is going to be key, and 5G SA architecture actually provides that. The second one is that I would say programmability. You need to be able to program the network. You need to be able to make changes to it because automation, as I said, has two components, right? It's orchestration as well as assurance guarantees. So for orchestrating in real time, you need to be able to program the network in real time. So with the disaggregated nature of what we have in 5G SA, with the service-based architecture and so on, I think we have a lot more opportunities to do automation. The third thing that I would say is that 5G SA inherently provides analytics framework. So for example, we have something called as NWDAF, which is the network data analytics function in the core, as well as MDAF, which is a management data analytics function in the management plane. So you have these two architectures or these two frameworks already available that can really accelerate your automation endeavors. So those are the things I think that are very, very critical. The last but not the least one is that 5G core or 5G SA also supports cloud native architecture, right? Which means that you have your software components acting as containers, which are much more amenable to management and orchestration and things like that. So I would say that all these four capabilities, including a disaggregated architecture, a cloud native architecture, as well as the data monitoring and collection capabilities, would make it a perfect platform for doing automation.
Yeah.
So definitely, I would like to chime with. Sorry. So I'd like to chime with Venki. Definitely, all the four-pronged approach he said makes sense. And a couple of things which I'd like to add over here is, first of all, SA or standalone is the architecture which supports SBA, service-based architecture. So of course, this is the true core which can support our next generation or advanced generation of applications. So this is a perfect match of advanced application platforms or framework to auto connect network. So that is very important to understand. One second portion is that when we say that, and he also mentioned NWDAF. So I'll say a couple of things. NWDAF, UDM, and then NSSMF, slicing managers, all of them has taken another step. By the way, Geo was the first network, such a huge network, who started at their 5G kind of services with SA. So entirely SA, pure greenfield in that way. But again, I'll come to Oren pieces of it. So when we say NWDAF and UDM and NSSMF, and you'll also see the progression to the SMO, they also have taken another step where you have gone distributed, not centralized. So NWDAF has also got a centralized function and distributed functions. Same is the case with NSSMF and UDM and others as well. So when you do that, then you're more closer to a pure cloud native based approach. And when you have a more and more cloud native based approach, then you can also aggregate multiple RAN, core, and transport functions to same infrastructure as a service. When you can do it, you can better orchestrate all three of them in coordination, as well as you can better get the exposure, SLA, and other things coming from the service side. So that is the reason why, whether it is 5G private enterprise framework or the use cases, or some of the news I have seen recently, multiple other European operators, they have launched a public, you can say 5G enterprise services, where they have their public net and private network. They are the part of the same infra. So all those things are possible with SA, and I'm very happy to say that more and more transition is happening towards SA, because in the beginning, US and Europe, everybody has started with NSA first, and then they have gone to SA. So hope to see the trend is coming, and with 6G we have only SA, which is a true service-based architecture, moving forward with a complete cloud-native asset, a part of the glue for both core application, radio, and anything else, data monetization, federated, everything coming along, and cloud native as a glue to all, where automation is the integral part of it.
Yeah.
Did you want to add something, Alexis?
Yeah, it's just to add something about monetization, because also 5GSA will enable slicing, as my previous panelist was talking, and enable also many use cases on monetization regarding manufacturing, medicine, surgery, oil industry, even, and so on. So without 5GSA, today we are not able to address those business cases as a CSP, and with network as a service slicing and with the 5GSA capability, will be able to address those use cases in the future, in the near future.
Yes, we're still waiting for the killer use case for 5G application, killer 5G application. So I think all eyes on 5G standalone to deliver that. We are probably halfway through our discussion. I just want to encourage the audience to also post questions in case they're interested in asking any questions. But moving slightly towards another angle, we talk a lot about data. So data is key. Being able to get good quality data is extremely important. Maybe Nandan, what's the role AI is playing in terms of generating data, and how can we harness data just to ensure that we can take advantage of that? And another discussion we had is it's all it's not all about networks becoming faster and more efficient. It's also about them being more sustainable. So I think it's very important focus currently and in the near future, in the longer term future, about data, getting the good quality data, and also using the networks to become more sustainable and efficient. Could you address this maybe a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, with respect to data, I would like to add a couple of points. One is actually from the angle of observability data and how that is actually used to make the service assurance better. But the other part is about how the artificial intelligence and machine learning are redefining the service assurance aspect. So, coming to the latter part first, if you think about the service assurance earlier, it was reactive, meaning that only if something, an incident or a failure or an issue happens, we would be in a reactive approach to take corrective action. Now, the SLA would then be about the time taken between the incident, the time of the incident, and time to recovery. Now, to make things better, the next level would be the proactive service assurance, which is that even before an issue happens, if you can actually figure out what needs to be taken with respect to thresholds, like you would have an upper threshold and a lower threshold that is defined on the observability data, which is the stats, the health, metrics, logs, etc. And based on that, you would have, if a threshold is breached, either upper or lower, you would have predefined playbook patterns to actually take the corrective action. So the next level of this is extracting the best out of the data, which is the predictive service assurance. So here what happens is, what if you can actually predict the failures even before it happens with a reasonable probability, which is where the data is very important, the quality of data is important, the models that are actually trained on the data is important because of the accuracy, etc. By this, what happens is that you have you predict where things go wrong. So your the paradigms for high availability and performance are actually higher, and you get better service assurance. You have optimal usage of power, compute, and resource. You can actually scale the resources accordingly, which means you are optimally utilizing the resources, which translates to reduced operational cost, dollars saved. And if you prevent the applications from going down or very minimal downtime, you will have a better customer experience. So you get the win of both happy customers and reduced operational cost to manage the network, which is a win-win, and this works at scale. Coming back, so the crux of all of this is the data that is collected. And as Venki and Alexis and Ravi was mentioning about the cloud native architecture has been predominant for 5G and 5G SA. What has happened is with Kubernetes and cloud native architecture, you have a predefined way of actually orchestrating the applications, defining their structure, which is configuration, performance, fault, security, and accounting, etc. So you have a nice way of managing those applications and the data that is generated. So you get the data, which is the observability data as a whole, which is the FCAPS data, and then you define your AIML models on top of it to take corrective actions, which also plays out for other use cases as well.
I'll just add one additional thing. So, out of all the data that is stored and collected, right, only 2 to 4% of them is really used. And among the 2 to 4 percentage, only 0.1% is actually analyzed. So we are collecting enormous amount of data with all these capabilities, but only using a very little bit of whatever we are collecting. It's a huge thing that we need to focus on. It's a huge resource that we have to manage properly, because if we don't manage properly, we are going to get to a point where there's so much of data, so much of noise that we're not going to use, and that's going to put undue burden on the network itself. So that's something that I would put forth as a caution that we need to exercise.
Yeah, if I may add, maybe getting the right data is quite challenging because, as Ranky spoke about, we have enormous heterogeneous data with different sources. And the challenge is to get the right data at the right time from the right sources. If specifically if you work with in a kind of hybrid cloud with several cloud providers, and the right data, what you must keep in mind is the data that serve or support your business requirement. So um, you cannot analyze or compute all the data, but you need to focus on the data that fit your business requirement and help you to improve the customer experience. And also, I want to talk about federative data platform to be able to federate all the data coming from various sources to be able to plug your machine learning model or your AI model, machine learning model in this data lake so that you can feed the model, you can train your model, and then you can select which data you need to focus on for your business requirement. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's about achieving outcomes, right? So it's making sure
Yeah.
that you help the businesses. It's that's how we measure success and how we measure impact. And I think we were talking a little bit when we were preparing for this panel about the intent-based network. Should we explain the concept a little bit further, and maybe we can share experiences in terms of how easy it is to implement intent-based networks and how do you manage it? And can you are those the networks we should go after, or we should really try to make sure that there's a bit more assurance in those networks? Who wants to get us started on this?
I can start with what we are doing at Orange because intent-based is a new approach to reach the autonomous network operation, management, and so on. And today it's very hard for intent-based because we need to have a kind of standardization, a kind of model, a kind of common language on how to translate intent from business level to operation and then to resources level. So intent-based is a trend, is a reality, and it's the way to go. But today, we need to start from, I may say, a minimum viable intent that could be a script that we are trying we are used to write for managing the configuration of for transport, RAN, IP, microwave, and so on. And starting from there, we can see how we can improve this script, encapsulate them to make them intent-based so that we can develop or elaborate new way of managing new instruction in a declarative way to manage the future, like 5G, let's say, networks, to be able to capitalize on the script we are using today, and then to develop a new way of managing the network in the future. And so intent base is challenging, but I think it's the way to go. What I can say.
I think, with your permission, I would also like to add, or I would like to discuss another point which is not yet discussed a lot nowadays. I think the question is how up to what extent the application industry is also aware of all the great automation power the auto connective networks are bringing to the plate. As on date, when we are talking about orchestration to a level where radio, transport, our core, everything is aligned as per the dynamic SLA coming from the use case or the industry or different verticals. Up to what extent those applications are designed to take the advantage of exposure functions like NWDAF and couple of others in a way that they can have the probes dropped into our own connectivity infra. I think that area is not yet discussed a lot on our open fora. We see that all what we are doing within our connectivity infrastructure, we talk a lot. But all the artificial intelligence, what you're using, like for a slice end to end, or all what we are gathering at our rig side, SMO side, and all, how to best utilize that, whether in a terms of federated or in other terms, that awareness also needs to propagate to application industry as well. I think if you think about the exposure functions, even as on date, which is written in HTTP2 or anything else, now the question is how far the standards or maturity of those interfaces or dynamics is really gone to a level where industry has started in true sense using it to all the benefits what 5G core or in future 6G core will bring. I think that area also needs to be talked on, needs to be worked on, needs to be leveraged. Yeah.
Venki, are you doing any work in those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So I completely agree with what Ravi is mentioning, right? So this is a problem that we have seen, and what we have seen also is that there are some isolated efforts happening in different organizations, right? For example, ITU is doing something with respect to how the application itself can understand the capabilities of the network so that it can better utilize it, because eventually what is needed is the application needs to have an exposure of the capabilities of the network, right? So ITU is doing work with respect to standardization of some of these data format, AIML pipelines, and so on. NGMN is actually creating their own platform, is specifically for the problem that Ravi is talking about. Also, figuring out the requirements for that platform, right? So they are in the process of creating a blueprint for that platform that would enable us to use this. Obviously, 3GPP has done some work, but the focus is more on the NRM, which is the network resource management and models that we can use for all this orchestration. And the focus is also on some of the RAN aspects, like, for example, how do we use beamforming? What kind of capabilities can beamforming provide to the application? And I don't have to talk about ORAN Alliance when the ORAN Alliance chief is here, but ORAN Alliance is also doing a lot of work there, right? I mean, with respect to RIC and SMO. So there are all these activities. One thing I feel is that many of them are happening in silos, so they are not really collaborating with each other to fix make sure that there is no overlap between what is being done. They are doing this in a coherent fashion. So that's one thing that I would say. Uh, on on my own efforts, I have actually worked on a couple of different things where intent-based networking has been a prime way to actually achieve this, right? So what we have seen is that from 3G to 4G to 5G to 6G, you have a lot more sophisticated efforts, so a lot of sophisticated capabilities. But with that, you're also having significant increase in the complexity of the network, right? So there is no way a human can actually figure out the best way to configure a network. And in 5G and 6G, what we have done is precisely the idea that you can come up with a requirement in terms of very simple requirements saying that, okay, the latency between link A, between points A and B cannot exceed 20 milliseconds. All right. So you as an operator just specify the intent, and the network itself will basically convert that intent to configurations. On the flip side, we have also done things like root cause analysis, right? So suppose that you, as a network operator, you figure out that the call drops in a particular base station is more than some number. You can query using intent-based framework to figure out, okay, what is really the cause of that call drop. So those are the things that we have used mainly in automating and mainly understanding the network based on the data that we have collected.
Yeah, actually, I would like to add 2 points on the to supplement what Venki mentioned on the intent used for configuration management. So, if you the intent has been with the cloud native architecture and Kubernetes for a long time, right? So, any like designing of the applications and monitoring from day zero to day, and you have configurations. Now, if you take a distributed unit, which is the mainly software responsible for processing in the front hall, a DU has anywhere on an average about 5,000 knobs or variables that you can actually tune, which would translate to configuration key value pairs. Now, if you are managing a network of about 1 million subscribers, you would have about 250,000 knobs about with 500 distributed units or far edge clusters. Now, going and tuning, adding the configurations for each and every far edge cluster would be very tedious. And this is where the intent based technique of generating the configuration would be very, very helpful with the help of AI and ML applications and models. Second thing would be about the RAN intent and goals. So if you take the ORAN standards for A1 interface, it actually specifies the RAN intents for policy management, power management, radio resource management, and SON network. So there it is not only for the bottom layer, which is the cluster based intents, but also at the larger network layer, how do you define these intents and translates to different configurations.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I would like to just give each one of you an opportunity just to give closing remarks. So we didn't manage to discuss everything that we wanted, and we could probably stay on for another 45 minutes to an hour. But in a few words, we are currently struggling still with the data sources. I heard that standardization is very much needed, and a bit more coordinated efforts are also needed in order to accelerate the efforts that currently exist. From your point of view, each one of you, what else is needed? What needs to be done for us to ensure that we're going to indeed be delivering next generation services? Venki, I can see
start.
you on top of the screen.
I can start.
Okay, Alexis,
We need all to work in a kind of ecosystem, opening, making API, making our services or our platform as a service, and being AI driven and data driven, and that's all.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I would like to point out, like, you have to correlate to understand better, right? For example, if you take social media, you have speech recognition, which is speech to text. You have advertisement media and content generation, and you have security and vision, where AI and ML plays a huge role with the data. Now, what we should at least have is these building blocks for telco, which is basically the intents for configuration management, traffic aware scheduling of the network or scaling of the network functions and services, predictive healing, and power management, to start at the least.
I will, I would like to say that I think a better adoption of SMO framework, what ORAN has proposed, and our industry is adopting it very well. But I think there is a twist to it. I will say more and more adoption of AI infused fabric over there, more of your generative AI. Going to a level where I think just simplistic textual commands to analyze, predict, and auto heal, those kind of things. I think the industry is already working on it, although like the SDOs, they are still in a process to do it. But I feel that more and more generative AI and then AI fabric, not only going to the management, but again, going to the user and control side, and a continuous and complete SMO, which has got not only the infrastructure happenings, but also what the application wants. I think if we see it in that way, I see that thing you can do only with a federated fabric. So I think expansion of open source SMO is the way to go with the greenfield as well as brownfield as well for the plugins.
Yeah, so I would also just add that the only way we can get 5G and 6G adopted more is by reducing the complexity and therefore the cost of deployments. Because if the cost and complexity is just skyrocketing, this is just not going to take off. And in my opinion, the only way to do this, or only way to tame the complexity, is by automation. And when we say automation, I think we need to rely more on distributed way of automating. So things like what Ravi was talking about, right? Federated learning is going to be an important aspect because it's also privacy preserving. You can have all this data, but these data, they come with private information. We will not be able to use it. So it has to be more techniques related to privacy preserving techniques, which is what federated learning and other techniques are going to do. Also, more techniques such as reinforcement learning that would be less reliant on data and more on online learning. So I would say that AI/ML, but AI/ML also focused on two aspects. One is federated, as well as second one is reinforcement learning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time today and participating in this panel. I can see somebody's timer is ringing, so we're out of time. I hope everybody has enjoyed today's session and learned a lot. Look forward to welcome you at another Fierce Wireless webinar pretty soon. Thank you very much. Good night, good evening,
Thank you.
good afternoon.
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
me. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. And of course, a special thank you to Rakuten Symphony for their support of the session. Please check out our website for all our upcoming events in the future, and make sure you join us back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time as we'll continue with the show with our next session on closed loop automation. See you tomorrow.